Here we go, another exciting episode of Epicenter, an in-depth series featuring business leaders and influencers who are helping to shape tomorrow and today's digital economy together. If you want to check out previous episodes, go to oneepicenter.co. God, I don't know how to start. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Maki Hsieh. I'm going to let you introduce yourself because you've done so many different things around the world. But let's start with adding a little bit of context about Maki Hsieh and the giving back.
Oh, I love it. That sounds
because
great. Sounds really
like
good.
you're helping like the community to highlight the Asian experience in this world. What drove you to get into this passion of yours?
Well, it all started out growing up in Taiwan. I grew up in Taiwan.
Were you my neighbor?
I think so for a period of time.
Yeah.
See, Ronen and I, for context, we grew up together in Taiwan. And we went to the Taipei American School. And I remember that you and I sang at the Christmas show. And you had corduroy pants, and I had a bowl cut. I was famous for my bowl cut.
Yes, that bowl cut was actually quite the Japanese,
it was legendary.
Taiwanese style haircut.
It was a legendary bowl cut.
Yeah.
And then Ronen and I ran head-to-head against each other for the 8th grade student council president.
I lost.
No, you won.
No, I lost.
I lost. You won.
Then neither of us
No,
won.
wait. No, you won.
I ran for vice president. You ran for president.
No, you ran for president. And I was
No.
so mad at you because you won.
I did not win. I was never president.
Oh, really?
I'm not qualified to be a
I
president.
was mad at you for nothing.
Yes. See, let's make up.
Yes, we're good friends now.
Good friends once again.
And now you're serving as a board
See,
of governors.
33 years you held a grudge against me.
I hate Ronen. No, but no, it was really great growing up with you and a lot of other Europeans, and it was a global hub, and Taipei American School was just such a magnet for families and companies and ambassadors to come together, and the kids all went to the school. And it started there, and my mother was a little bit of a fairy tale story, and my mother was always an ambassador of culture, and she always said to us, we always had to think of one word that described the family, one word that describes what you are when people first experience you in a room. What do they experience? And for us, it was ambassadorship. She was very much into being a cultural ambassador. She had 2 masters and a PhD. She taught at Taida, National Taiwan University.
Wow.
She was this emissary of elegance, right? So she came from Japan, and her mother was a 51st generation of a Korean dynasty.
Whoa.
So the Silla Kingdom fell, and the last emperor of Korea lost his kingdom to 2 other warring kingdoms, and all the women and children fled under the auspices of being textile garment experts to Japan. So she has this long legacy of sophistication and culture, and all her 4 sisters, they play all these Japanese instruments, and they still
Wear kimonos.
wear kimonos, and they know the dancing and calligraphy. And actually, our family emblem is on the back of the 500 yen coin, and it's the official seal of the Prime Minister of Japan. So this is
はい。
so すごくね、なんか very classic, very elegant. But my father is Taiwanese, and he comes from a whole other side of the world, which is very entrepreneurial. All 3 of his brothers died in Papua New Guinea because Taiwan was colonized by Japan. And during the war, if you were Taiwanese, you were conscripted to the Japanese army. So they fought under a foreign flag, wearing foreign uniforms in a war that they really didn't want to be in. So his brothers all passed away
In Papua New Guinea.
in Papua New Guinea, and he was the only surviving.
You know there's cannibals
brother.
there, right?
There's cannibals and all sorts of scary people in Papua New Guinea. I've never been to Papua New Guinea.
Neither have I.
Never been there. But so then he decided to immigrate to Japan as a colonial citizen. And he was born in 1921, so he was about 20 years older than Mom. When he went to Japan, he started out trading textiles and peanuts, and he would sell something for a lower price. He would buy something for a lower price, sell it for a higher price, and he did this for a while. Then he went to Waseda University and got his degree. And then he went into sugar, He went into Hershey's chocolates. He became the sole distributor of Hershey's.
Whoa.
He just built this
In Japan?
In Japan. He built this import-export empire over the years. And by the time they married, he was the seventh highest taxpayer in Japan. And his company, Matsuya Finance, was the first Chinese-owned import-export and finance company in Tokyo. So the whole idea of scholars and business coming together, of intelligentsia and entrepreneurs converging, of Taiwan and Japan and East and West, because my mother went to America in the 60s and she became an American citizen. So the whole idea of East and West and that whole conversation of what does Asia mean to the United States? And Rockefeller created the Asia Society in the late 50s for the same reason of how do Americans relate and how do Europeans and Caucasian executives relate to Asians and how do we do business in Asia? How do we have this cross-cultural collaboration? So that was very exciting, and that was all starting when my mother and father were meeting. So that really played a large role in my growing up and thinking about what it meant to be an ambassador. But just like every fairy tale, tragedy struck, and I think this is important too, because a lot of times when you think about giving or corporate giving or personal giving, it really does have to start from a place where you had some tragedy happen. Otherwise, you wouldn't understand why it's important to give. So when I was in kindergarten, I came home and my mother drove us around. We were living in Embassy Row. So we looked over a ravine. It was a beautiful place, a beautiful house. And she said, we have to move out of this house now. Mommy got a place from the National Taiwan University where they give these homes, apartments for free. It's the projects for veterans and janitors who work at the university. And I said, well, Mommy, why do we have to move out of the house? I like the swing and I like the housekeepers and I liked everything here. She said, well, your father made some really bad investments, and just like all multimillionaires, they probably go bankrupt at least once in their life. And this is when he went really, really south. And she said, Mommy has a job at the university, but your dad really made some bad investments and things happen, and he owes a lot of money to his number one client, who is the Yakuza's organized crime. So we have to move out, and we have to,
Do you have
I have my
pinkies?
Miggies, so I have it. So she said, this is serious, so we're going to just kind of hunker down and see what we can do, and I'm sure that he will come out of it. He always does. It's going to be fine. So from kindergarten to fifth grade, we lived in the projects of Taipei. And she refused for us to go to the Taiwanese school, so we continued to go to the American school. She took on a second job for this. She took on a third full-time job to pay his debts to Japan. And we lived this way for a couple of years. And I have to say that during this time, we were so poor. I didn't know because I was just a kid, but we had nothing. Like, we had no breakfast. And then for lunch, it was one slice of bread with butter and one bologna folded in half and shoved in a paper bag. And there was no drink or fruit, so I would just drink from the water fountain at school. We had no dinner. When we went home, it was just boiled water with salt and pork bone, because pork bone is free. So she could get pork bone for free. We had that Monday through Thursday. And then on Friday, she would get paid from the university. So she would take us to the bento place and the buffet place for 10 NT. We could get a big, huge plate. And my sister and I would eat. We're so hungry. And she would just wait until we finished, and then she would eat. I mean, it was just really, really horrible, with no air conditioning. We had to walk 4 flights of stairs, to get to our apartment. My mother and my sister shared a bedroom, and I had my own room. It was a laundry room that we converted with a cot, and it had a little red TV with a transistor antenna, that I could watch American shows. And
Black
it was
and white?
It was a black and white until later. They had had Miss America came in color, and then the Academy Awards came in color. So we're always watching wow, America's so great. And then there was a closet, and then there was a stupid apartment right next to my window, because Taiwan, when you live in the projects, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
And there was a stupid parrot, and he'll always say, 我会说话. 我会说话, which means I can talk. And I would say, would you stop? I know you can talk. And then he would just say, 我会说话, 我会说话. And I thought, oh my God, this is just really difficult to live this kind of condition and then go to a private school, the American school, which is filled with affluent people and amazing executives, and everything is fine for them. And during this time, I noticed that all of the people who were really nice to my mother, when they knew that she had hundreds of millions of dollars, they slipped away and they started treating her differently. And I noticed that one day she took me to the back of her friend's house and they forced us to go through the maid's entrance. And the friend just dumped like 3 bags filled with beautiful clothing, but it was all in like a garbage bag, like a black garbage bag. She just threw it there. And this was a friend who really respected my mother. They had a lot of social activities together. They really respected each other. And as a young kid, I kind of sat back and I thought, well, even with these conditions, my mother still had that second full-time job so we could go to the American school. I came home and I told her I wanted to play violin. She paid for the violin lessons. She paid for the tennis lessons. We were part of the American club. We were part of the American school system. We were part of the American Community Center. I told her I wanted to play Little League. I was in Little League. And one day I asked her, Mom, why did you spend so much money in our education? Well, we really didn't have a lot. And she said, because I knew one day your father would get out of this. And by that time, it would be too late. When we don't have financial capital, you have to focus on other things. We have generational capital, which we cannot let go because it's a multi-generational legacy that we're giving you. During this time, you have to focus on your intellectual capital. When you're really down, you notice things that you don't know when you're really on top. Because when you're really on top, people really are not as honest with you because they want to impress you maybe, or they're kind of intimidated. But when you're at the bottom, you notice everything because you're down here at the bottom. And I think being there for 5 years in elementary school, it really showed me that little things really mattered. Like free education really mattered. And American school had integrated arts. That was so important. We had choir, we had orchestra, we had band, we had musical theater, we had whatever we wanted because it was a private school system. And I often thought, wow, equity was available to me then, but it's not available to everybody. And that's really unfortunate. So during this time, I realized that when teachers gave to us, or not out of pity, but out of encouragement. And I think that's the other thing is your heart of giving needs to not come from pity, but it needs to come from compassion and from being able to relate that, oh, this family is going through some tough times. So it's really important for families and, compassion of you. Like there were so many classmates who were just so kind during that time. So it really affected me during that time when people are so kind, And then one day, my mom came home and she said, oh, we're moving. I said, where are we moving? She goes, okay, your father transacted something called a REIT. I said, oh, I don't know what that is. She goes, well, it's a big transaction in Tokyo. So now we're back on the hill. We're back on the mansion again. So we're moving out of the projects. From generational capital, you move to intellectual capital and social capital, kind of observing how social structures work. And now we were moving into political capital. This is where she was doing a lot of translation work. And she caught the attention of a really interesting person who was Li Donghui Furen, Li Donghui's wife's brother. So Li Donghui wife's brother is very, very passionate of
Former president.
yes. And I don't speak about this too much because he's controversial.
Yeah.
But former president Li Donghui's Furen, his wife's brother, was my godfather. And he really needed my mother for translation. She was really, really great with translating Japanese, Chinese, English. She's published in 4 languages. She has 2 masters and a PhD in East Asian law and cognitive linguistics. So she was really well-sourced and needed for political conversations. And a lot of folks from Academia Sinica to Taida would always ask her for her advice. So she was a official translator for Taiwan and the government when they went to Egypt and when they went to other places. And seeing that also made me realize that she really, despite her difficulties, she really had a heart for giving and building up political capital for the country, for the community, and for our international relations. She really used that and leveraged that to build Taiwan-Japan relations.
It's like you were describing how your family, 1 minute you're top of the hill, and then all of a sudden everything's gone. People treat you differently. So you don't have to be, maybe when you become financially handicapped, now you're seen differently.
Isn't that interesting? You're seen differently, and power construct is different.
Yes.
And the societal values you differently, and your family differently, depending on what's happening with your family at that time. Whether it's financial, or it's a upheaval, a political upheaval, or maybe a Western invasion has occurred, and suddenly you don't have any
same
value. But you're the
person.
same person. We were just talking about
Nothing-
that the
and,
other
and
day.
people are defined not only by their beliefs,
Yes.
but actually that they're defined by their actions.
Yes.
And as soon as, they believe you're one person, but they all of a sudden change.
My father used to say, you are what you do, not what you say you're going to do.
Yes.
And it's so important, especially in the world of business, when you make a promise, and it's a verbal social contract.
Yes.
And it's also a way that you promise somebody in the way you want to treat them equally, that you keep that promise, and people will remember. I am the same person, but depending on what construct I find myself in, I have to adjust my narrative. And working for the Walt Disney Company was all about storytelling. So what aspects of the story do you want to highlight? So for example, if I meet an executive who's from Japan, then I'll say, "Oh, hajimemashite." I'll talk in Japanese. I'll say, "Hi, my mother's Japanese from Nagoya. Thank you so much." And if I meet an ambassador from Japan, that is what I'll emphasize.
You know what I tell people from Japan when I meet them?
What do you say?
I was made in Japan.
That's you were. That's
But I was
true.
born in
You were
Taiwan.
born in Taiwan.
And,
That's a lot of detail.
A lot of detail, yeah.
Let's talk about Jacob now.
Let's go back to you.
But I think that we make those adjustments and highlights, and we are more complex than we think. I have this wonderful friend of mine, Holly Zhang, who also is helping me with international relations. And we had a 3-hour sushi lunch the other day, and she was talking. She's a journalist and just amazing. She's even interviewed Desmond Tutu. She's super
Whoa,
cool.
cool.
And she said, Maki, people are complex, and executives are complex. Leaders who have to drive a P&L or drive a new product launch or go into a new geography, they're actually more complex than they want people to know. So it's okay, actually, to show one facet to one person and one facet to another person. It's almost like these are different facets or pieces of the overall puzzle. And it's okay to be a little bit mysterious. And I thought that was a very interesting perspective from Holly. But definitely when I speak to somebody who's from Korea, I don't talk about the Japanese side. People from Taiwan don't want to hear about the American side, really, because it's very far away. People in America just want to know that I'm an ABC, American-born Chinese, even though I was not born in America. But I'm American-born in Asia, so this is where it gets confusing.
How about when I describe myself?
Well, you're a Caucasian Western guy who can succeed anywhere.
But you can say you are American.
True.
When I say I'm Chinese, people are like, no, where are you really from?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, it's true.
Still today.
Still today.
Even in this, when I identify as Chinese.
Chinese.
Right? No, you're not Chinese. Okay, fine. I identify as a cat. Oh, okay.
Identify as a cat. Asian Hall of Fame is very interesting because we had this entire discussion about race. And if you notice on our website, we have a list of criteria.
Yes.
And it says that the inductee must source at least 25% of their heritage or culture to one of these 30 countries. I don't even think we say countries. We say
regions.
yes. We don't talk about only race because, for example, there's a really famous Korean radio show host. He's super famous. He's awesome. He grew up in Korea. He's Korean. His parents are Korean. He's Korean, but he's black. And he does not think he's black. He does not think he's African American. Does not identify as black. He does not identify as American. He was adopted, and he thinks he's a Korean, and he's famous. Everybody loves him. So is he Korean or is he black? We say that we accept him. He's fine. Asian Hall of Fame, no problem. And I get a lot of heat for that. Ronen, I get a lot of heat for that. A lot of people are purists, and they're like, no, it's got to be Asians for Asians only, for Asia only. And I said, well, if you do that, you're missing out on an entire group who want to promote Asians and hire Asians and work with Asians and who want to be Asians, and they marry Asians maybe, or they live in Asia. They like that.
Do you know that I'm 3 generations Asian?
Asian. Yes. Your
My
grandfather.
father, born in China, in
China.
Tianjin,
Yes.
and my grandmother
Yeah. Oh, grandmother. Yeah.
in Beidahe, in China as well.
对呀，那所
So
以你说
and
你是中国人，那就中国
so,
人
but
啊。
this is 3 generations,
Yeah.
right? Yet.
Yet.
Dot dot.
Yet. Dot dot
So-
dot. So it's very interesting when you think about
Yeah.
if we think about
Acceptance, right?
acceptance and the heart of multi-generational legacy. I mean, we already now expanded to indigenous, since Asia is home to 75% of the world's indigenous. So we are Asians, national, international, and indigenous. So last year we inducted our first indigenous honoree, Virginia Cross of the Muckleshoot Indian tribe. She's the first Indian woman tribal chief in the country, the United States. And then this year we're honoring the founding leader of the San Manuel Band of Indians. So this whole conversation about indigenous and about oppression, repression, suppression, which continues to now, is very interesting, and it's part of our whole giving story of how we can give back and forth
So-
to each other.
This Asian Hall of Fame was basically it was the idea of Robert Chin, right? And being the philanthropist behind the founding of this organization. Philanthropy is it about giving the money or is it about giving energy, right? Because I think it's like we were talking and you mentioned that for some reason, like Jews in America and other races are very keen on philanthropy. They believe in giving back.
Yes, yes.
But damn, Asians got money, but they don't want to give in philanthropy, right? Or do they? Like, tell us about the Asia Hall of Fame. Tell us about Robert Chin and tell us about philanthropy.
Asian Hall of Fame was established by Karen Wong. Karen Wong is a 4th generation of the Chin family. And her father, Robert Chin, was a postal worker in Seattle. He's the 3rd generation. And his ancestors came from China to build the Transcontinental Railroad. And then they settled in the Pacific Northwest. They settled in Seattle. And he was delivering mail, and he noticed there was a lot of rejection letters to Chinese families because back in the 50s and 60s, if you had a Chinese name, you were denied mortgages and loans. So he went to his wife, Ruth, and he told her that he wanted to build a book of business as an insurance agent. And that was the best way for him to build a business quickly and get to know a lot of people. So for many years, he started building a book of business, going door to door, selling insurance, learning about the insurance companies and all of the structures and systems and becoming an agent and doing all of it. He built a book of business.
Smart.
Right? He built the book of business this way. And then in 1960, he opened America's first Asian-owned bank. It was U.S. Savings and Loan in Seattle. And there was a line of people wrapped around the corner to open their account because they wanted small business loans and they wanted mortgages that American banks at that time were not giving to either. Well, they were not giving to Jews either, which is why Jewish families also went and created Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers. And, it's a whole similar story. When he passed, Karen Wong, Ruth Chin, his wife, and Karen's brother, Derek, decided to create the Robert Chin Foundation. It's a private philanthropy that gives back to the community, uplifts the Asian narratives, and helps underprivileged kids who you don't have to be Asian to get a grant, but they try to advance the betterment of the community. Karen is now the 4th generation. She's gone to Berkeley. She's got a law degree. She's a lawyer. Her husband owns a bank. They're running a bank. She's now financially secure, and she's still noticing that despite all of this, Asians are really not given a seat at the table. They're really not invited to political discussions. You're not seeing a lot of Asians in board rooms or in hospitals in the leadership positions. And she thought, you know what? We ought to create something that really helps give back to the community while also uplift Asian leaders and correct the undervaluation of Asian contributions to America. So she created the Asian Hall of Fame. It was just a dinner party. And originally it was a fundraiser for the Asian Resource Center. It was a community center that she had built for the Robert Chin Foundation. And it was Gary Locke, now the former U.S. ambassador to China. A couple of folks were inducted. Connie Chung, then Bruce Lee, Christy Yamaguchi, then it got bigger and bigger. And this dinner party was getting a little bit bigger than they thought. So while she was giving back to the community, she really didn't think that this was going to blow up to be this really amazing brand, because it was just a dinner. And then suddenly Moet Hennessy heard about Asian Hall of Fame, and they were not pitched, they were not solicited, and they just called her and said, we want to be part of this. We don't know what it is, but we want to be part of it. Here's a sponsorship. And that's when she and the board sat up and they thought, we really need to think about Asian Hall of Fame as having a larger philanthropic impact. So having a dinner party and a gala of how Asians tell each other how great we are, this is not enough. It's got to maybe have a bigger footprint. So they conducted a national search, and I was living in LA at that time. I had worked for a performing arts center. Before that, I worked for Disney. I was also involved in private equity for a while. So I have about 30 years of a corporate background with some years of philanthropy. And she called, and then the headhunter called, and I just thought that this was a really great opportunity to do something really significant and give it a shot. Yes, it had a 19-year name, but it's a bit of a startup because we had to rebrand. We had to transform. It didn't have a website, didn't have an Instagram, it had no TikTok.
No TikTok.
No Facebook, it didn't have any of that. There was no WeChat. It was like nobody knew
Is
what
there
it
a WeChat
was.
now?
Well, we're trying to get one. You know how hard that is? It's really difficult.
Let's talk
Let's
after the
talk
show.
about that. I could sure use your help. So no, so it's a bit of a startup. So it had this name and it had all of these inductees, but it had a startup feel because we were not a nonprofit yet. That was the first step, was to become a 501c3 nonprofit so that we could expand our philanthropic footprint and start getting more grant money and federal support, local support, etc. Corporate sponsorships is a big one. That happened just a few years ago. We opened Asian Hall of Fame savings account with $100 in 2020 and a $25,000 check from a very good founder of mine, Lily Liu, who's always supportive. We closed we closed a couple of months ago. We closed 2022 with $1.1 million of net sales and $111,000 in net profit. We're in the black, which is amazing.
Wow.
And that came from $100. So it's just keeps growing and growing. And I think that people are hearing about us. We're not soliciting them because we're just so busy getting the programming up and running. Caltech came in as a platinum sponsor. Disney heard about us. They're now one of our supporters. Illumination Entertainment, they gave us a sponsorship. They're really involved. We love them. We're just really grateful, like Chanel and Prada and
So what
all of these
what
guys
are they?
came in.
I mean, what is the mandate of Asian Hall of Fame? I mean, what are some of the things that it's doing?
So Asian Hall of Fame is a lot like Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Golf Hall of Fame, Tennis Hall of Fame. There's a lot of these Hall of Fames. There are about 1,100 of them worldwide. But it has a very interesting perspective. It has a very interesting mandate, which is to galvanize all of the power that Asians and successful Asians have contributed, and all of that, all the powerful voices, in order to overcome bias against Asians, in order to overcome this ridiculous silo of Asians, that we're going to pit Asians against each other in order to achieve a certain message that another group might have or government might have. And I think that with Stop Asian Hate, a lot of people saw in Canada, France, in the United States in particular, that there's a lot of animosity towards Asians, even though Asians are successful, even though Asians are contributing, even though they want their kids to learn English and go to the best schools. They're still seen as the enemy. We're seeing a lot of political rhetoric right now in the United States that Asians are seen as the enemy. They're seen as a cause of COVID-19. They're seen as the reason why the other Americans or the other Westerners cannot get jobs. And it's this ongoing rhetoric of how Asians are communists and they're all evil and they're all spies and they're all deceitful and they're not here to help us. Asian Hall of Fame is very important for that reason, that we're here to show that Asian contributions should not be feared. It should be celebrated and it should be respected, and that Asian leaders should not be seen as the enemy. Asian leaders and companies who really care about the betterment of the community, they should be honored. They should be revered. And that the stature of Asian culture needs to be elevated to a higher level. We're seeing a lot of times with the success recently in the Oscars, that although Asians have made strides in America and in the West, they're really afraid to amplify their voices. And we're hoping that Asian Hall of Fame serves as that microphone for people to step forward and to say, we're here to help, we're here to contribute, we're here to be your friend, and we're here to do whatever it takes to, to help collaborate and to help partner and launch products and create new companies and take things to the next level. So I think it's a really fun and important.
And it also has a arm that it helps founders, right?
Absolutely.
Especially Asian female founders.
Yes, absolutely. This
in
is
the tech space.
Yes, this is really important for us.
Yeah.
We sat back when my first 100 days that I started.
Yes.
We sat back and then we said, okay, we're not in the justice space. A lot of people are doing great things in justice. We're not really in the marching and protesting and rallying and signing petition space, because our inductees are very busy, right? They would love to march, but they're very busy running businesses and P&Ls, and this is really not their focus. So I said, you know what? Instead of trying to guess what our philanthropic impact is supposed to be, let's just conduct a survey. So a survey went out to all of our existing inductees, right? This included Kevin Kwan of Crazy Rich Asians. This included a lot of people, who we really respect, like Major General Tony Taguba of the Taguba Report, very famous advocate of Filipino veterans' rights. This included a lot of people who really had a lot to say. So I got back the survey, and the survey was simple. If we know you're very busy, we know you are advocating for other things like cancer, diabetes, cystic fibrosis, your own community work. What would you like Asian Hall of Fame to advance? We have this big microphone. We're building this big global platform. If we eventually stream on HBO Max, and we're making $20 million a year contract fees. HBO. What would you like us to advance? And unanimously, everyone said, we really need to advance tech, entertainment, and arts incubation, especially for women, founders who are toggling multiple things. They're toggling family and parents and kids and founder obstacles and red tape and how to present the product, but also how to be the face of a launch. I mean, they're toggling multiple things, and they're not really getting the support that they need, maybe from their family. Maybe their family's saying, well, it's kind of a crazy thing that you're doing. You're quitting your accounting job to do what? Like, why are you doing that? I mean, in the U.S., they came out with a study last year that out of all of the venture capital investments that went out last year, 0.2% went to Asian women. There weren't any Asian women that got those because there weren't enough Asian women founders who said, okay, well, really wanted to start this thing. Whether or not it's a tech startup or an entertainment idea or a documentary or a book, I mean, the tech, entertainment, and arts incubation is huge for us. So this is an entire pillar, this initiative to fund women, startup capital for them, scholarships if they need, advanced degrees or certifications, whatever it takes to get them to that next level is really huge for us. The other pillar is the academy, where we noticed that folks who have an accent, who are neurodivergent, maybe they're high-functioning autism or Asperger's, who are diversity, maybe they're not Asian, but they really love all things Asia, maybe they're Hispanic, they're not given the opportunity. They need to work, they need to provide for their families. They just want an opportunity. They just want to see what it is that made Asian icons successful. Maybe I can learn and I can be successful too. So our academy is really huge. To date, we've distributed $419,000 of fellowship prizes, free laptops, grants for folks to come in and learn and also help their family and advance their career, make their college dreams come true. And then the third pillar, which I'm really excited about, is a whole initiative around trauma, what that means, multi-generational trauma, not just trauma because you experienced a hate crime, but the chair of this, Major General Tony Taguba, and his co-chair Ren Hanami are both inductees, and they're very passionate about the idea of making sure that the trauma of imperialism, colonialism, all of that does not get forgotten, and that's why we have the construct today of how Asians are seen as the enemy or they're not seen as equal. So this piece is really important. We're a very big part of the reversal of the Rescission Act, where Filipino veterans who fought for the Americans were then not given the full military benefits that they were promised by Congress. So we're really a vocal advocate of this. But Ren Hanami is also very excited about the whole idea of brain injury survivors, domestic violence survivors, trauma survivors, and human trafficking survivors, making sure most of them are Asian women coming from Asia, that they are rescued, rehabilitated, and they get the training they need to have full-time jobs.
What about the Asian woman founder that is in Indonesia or Vietnam or here in Asia somewhere?
We would love to collaborate with somebody like Ronen Mense, who knows a lot of people.
I have his email address.
So this
What's
president of Apps Flora APAC, who could really direct us, because right now the Women in Tech Entertainment and Arts Guild is co-chaired by Sue Taylor, who is the Chief Information Officer of the Gates Foundation.
Wow.
And she sits on 2 boards. And then Sunita Lontao, who is a global head of Hewlett-Packard, and she also sits on 2 tech boards. And they're really excited about the idea of making sure that the right women hear about this opportunity to get microgrants. In terms of the incitement, what does that mean? You know, that's an evolving thing. We would love to get your input and have that one sheet ready, but you know, we're ready to roll and we're ready to make an impact and make sure that the great products that women founders have in their minds and on their blueprints, you know, come to reality.
And can any crazy rich Asian who wants to support this foundation, can they do that?
100%. I mean, for $100,000, you have 4 women who can actually go to college and we can pay for their fellowship. They can get free laptops. You're impacting 4 lives in a very significant way. You know, for $500,000, you know, you're impacting like 40 people who are of all ages, from college to MBA to grad schools. And guess what? With the current work shortage, they can actually become workers. So we're doing some fantastic work. And yes, if you have $1 million, we can have an entire founders wall dedicated to you.
$1 million.
$1 million.
Billion.
Yes.
So, Maki, you also have accomplished a lot in your own career. You spent a lot of time talking about others, but I think your humbleness is. I think we want to talk a little bit about you. Talk to me about the violin. Talk to me about investment banking, and talk to me about green hats and 4th floors.
Well, the interesting thing about music is that I was actually born dead on arrival. The umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck, and I was born, it's called a blue baby. So when I was born, I was already gone.
Whoa.
And they revived me, but 6 months later, I died a second time, crib death. So this is where Elon and I have a lot of connection, because he had a baby died of crib death. So I died of crib death. There was a blanket over my face, and I stopped breathing. I was dead.
Whoa.
So I got revived again, so it's twice.
Damn, you're a cat.
I know, I'm a cat. I've got 7 lives left. But the 2 incidents, what it did was it really affected my hearing, so I couldn't hear out of my right ear at all. And I only had about 30 or 20% hearing in my left ear. And my mother didn't know. None of us knew. And I just went through life as a toddler, not understanding the data that was coming in. And I would just speak my own language for 2 years. My mother was very concerned, you know, because she's teaching Japanese and English and Chinese, and I'm not catching on to the language. And everyone told her, okay, this child is definitely autistic, definitely need to send her to special school. Maybe she has Down syndrome, like there's something very wrong with her, and I don't think that she can ever succeed at the American school because she's not connecting with the world. So my mother, after going through everything, when I was 4 years old, she signed me up for piano, and I hated it. I was like, Helen Keller, I hated the piano. I hated the piano.
Didn't we all hate
No, but
piano?
I was mean. I was just a mean. And I had about 4 teachers, and they would all cry. They would quit and cry because I would hit them. I would take my book and like hit their face, and then I would take the pencil and stab them. I was just mean.
Wow.
And I had these hard shoes, and I would kick the piano, and I would kick them, and they would all quit. So finally I had a teacher who was pretty strict, and she would hit my hand with a pencil. So I'm like, listen, but I still didn't like the piano. I didn't understand what I was doing because I couldn't hear it. So one day when I was 7, it suddenly dawned on me that this vibration and frequency I was receiving from this instrument matched to some note on the page, and that created some kind of experience that my mother then smiled and everybody clapped. And I thought, this is my way of connecting to the world. Then in second grade, that we had Miss Cipriano with the strings department.
Oh, yeah.
John Sullivan with the band and everything.
I played violin for a little while too, by the way.
Right? And choir. And
I was bad.
But then I went home and I said, Mom, I want to play the violin. She said, your father's going through a lot right now. We're like living in the projects. That's a very expensive instrument. Why don't you just stick with the piano? We have a piano. I said, no, I want to play the violin because I can hear it. I can hear high pitches. I can hear like birds. I can hear light bulbs. For some time, I actually couldn't practice with lights on because I can hear the frequency. I'm like a dog. I can hear the frequency.
But you are a cat.
Well, I guess so. Like
I guess cats hear. Yeah.
Cat is. So I'm very attuned to frequency. So anything about vibration and frequency, I'm all about it. I understand like the whole crystal sound therapy, all of that. Very into it because I can attest that really does affect the way you connect with the world. So with violin, I could hear it, I could understand it. And then choir was a great community, right? Orchestra was fun because then I was in a band, I was in jazz band. But then around middle school, my mother started to unravel. So in public, she was this social butterfly. She was this professor. She did really well. And we had a lot of political capital now. But when she came home, she started to unravel. I think this was when she first started to have a little bit of the Alzheimer's come. Because Alzheimer's doesn't just come right away. It usually starts pretty like early when you're in your 40s, maybe, or 30s. So she started to unravel. And I think this one time in 8th grade, I said something, and she got really mad. And she took the knife from the kitchen, and she was screaming like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you and your sister. And she was chasing us. And then I closed my bedroom door, and Katie was really scared. I said, Katie, hide in the closet, close the closet door. And my mom was like banging on the door, banging. And then like the hinges were coming. She's like, I'm going to kill you with this knife. I'm killing you right now. And it was just nothing. I don't even know what I said, but she was just set her off, which happens every day. Something sets her off. And then suddenly got quiet. And I was like, I think she's okay now. So I peeked out, and she was kind of just more quiet. So I took out the violin, and I started to play. And it calmed her down. It's kind of like in Harry Potter, there was that movie where there's like 3-headed monster, and they got calm with the harp. So I was like, okay, if I keep playing the violin, she's going to stay calm. So I'm going to keep playing the violin. And then when I stopped, she would like wake up. She'd be like, why did you stop? I was like, okay, we'll keep playing. So I would play and play and play. It would play like hours, the violin. It was like Beethoven. He was like talking about he couldn't stop playing the piano because his dad was an alcoholic. And whenever he stopped playing the piano, his dad would beat him. So he kept playing the piano. It was the same kind of trauma. In America, whenever I say to people I play the violin, they automatically say, oh, are you like Lindsay Sterling that you play dubstep and you're like making a lot of money on television? They always go to television. They always go to media. Their first question is distribution. Now, how does this work? Like, can you distribute your music? If you can't distribute your music, then you're really not that exciting. So I think that the whole TikTok, Facebook,
Spotify,
IG, to being an Instagram celebrity thing, that's all really important in terms of getting content out. And so I think with music, it was a really critical thing because to me, it was more of a private diary. It was more of a personal journey. It was less of I want to be famous and I want to be rich and I want to be on stage. And it really didn't come to that point. It was more private.
But you did all that.
I did do all that. When I went to Johns Hopkins, I went there originally because I wanted to cure my hearing. I wanted to go into neurosurgery. Right. And Johns Hopkins also had a sister school, Peabody. So I studied with Brosinovsky at Peabody Conservatory. I studied violin and I studied opera. But it was, again, classical, was classics training, was like technical analysis. It was very into the westernization of music and just being in your silo, like this is violin, this is opera, this is piano, this is what you do. So I really didn't think too much about doing anything more than that. I got an offer for an opera scholarship at Peabody to get my master's in opera. And of course, like all successful Asian families. That was not an option for a girl from a good family. Would not go into the music unless you absolutely had to, like you were a God-given talent. So that caused a lot of consternation. And my mother said, we're going to disown you. You're not going to inherit any properties if you go into music. There's no music in your future, absolutely none. So at that time, I thought, well, I really don't want to get a PhD in international development, which is what my BA was. I was already interning for Al Gore, kind of knew what that was like. I was a speechwriter for Al Gore, and I thought, okay, I think this is a little bit, politics is a little bit political.
Should have had you write my speech in eighth
It was
grade.
a little political. Politics is a little political. And then I was working in Hopkins Hospital. I worked for the Human Genome Project. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is like something I have to do every day from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. I don't know if that's what I really want to do. So then Morgan Stanley came on campus and they said, okay, if you know how business works, if you know how cash flow works, especially if you are a woman, this will empower you to help your family, help your country, help your company, help your future. And I thought, sold. I'm going to learn how money works. This is it. I'm going to work for Morgan Stanley. So
I'm going to work for money.
My mother goes, what are you doing? Why are you going into finance? Your father's already in finance. We don't need two people in finance. It's a very dangerous profession. I said, Mom, I'm my father's daughter. I have to do this. I think investment banking is the future. I'm going to do this. I'm going to try it. I'm going to learn what it takes to be a mogul. And she goes, oh no, good luck. But you know what? Don't give up on what you're supposed to be doing, which is, marry a multimillionaire and have properties and continue the family name. I said, okay, whatever. So I was like, this is it. I'm going to go into banking. So I told Brosinovsky, I'm not going to do music for a little bit. And he was really mad. He said, giving up your talent, you're giving up your skills. There isn't anybody like you who can do violin and opera and can sing the way you sing. So you really shouldn't give this up. And I said, it's just going to be for a little bit. I just going to try this finance thing to see what it's all about. So I left music for a little bit and I went into finance. I went into investment banking. And the way I did it was I called a recruiter. And she's a temp staffing, president of this temp agency. And I said, I temp for you in the summers. I missed the recruitment window for becoming an IB analyst. Because there's a whole thing. You got to go through the whole thing. I missed the window. She goes, okay, what are you looking for? I said, I would like to work for an investment bank. She goes, okay, the only one in Baltimore is Alex. Brown and Sons, which is the first investment bank in America. It was opened in 1800s. And it was going through a merger with Bankers Trust at that time. Became BT Alex Brown. And then 2 years later it was bought out by Deutsche Bank. So that's why my resume says Deutsche Bank. But I started with Alex Brown. She said, okay, there is a position, but it's not an analyst position. It's a temp role for an executive assistant of the top bank. It was William Legg and David Bannister. Very banking names, right? On the transportation side. I said, I'll take whatever you've got. Because at this point, I'm 5 days before graduation. I have no job. My mom thinks I'm a complete doofus. And I'm not even going to graduate school. And I missed the window for IB recruiting. She goes, okay, let me call them. So I'm graduating, walking. I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't know what to do because I have no job. I'm not quite sure how this is going to end, the story. And 3 days after I graduated, she calls and she goes, I got you the job. You're going to show up tomorrow. Investment banking assistant, executive assistant to William Legg and David Bannister in the transportation group. You ready? I said, okay, I'm going to do this. This is going to be great. Oh, what do I wear? I have no idea what to wear. I don't know what to wear. I don't know, briefcase. I don't know what do I bring. So I go there. And all of the analysts have already spent 3 months, right, learning about balance sheets and income statements and EBITDA and how to get to this and ROIC and da-da-da. They've all had their crash course. They all came from Harvard and Dartmouth, Stanford and Princeton. And I'm here from Johns Hopkins. They're just
It's not too shabby. Come on now.
Yeah, but Johns Hopkins is not really known for IB. It's more for medicine and research and technical data. I'm very technical, very data-driven. So I'm thinking, okay, I hope I'm going to be okay. So I'm learning about executive assistant work, travel expenses and picking up the phones. And this goes on for about a couple of weeks. And then HR calls and I'm like, oh no, maybe I did something wrong. I wore the wrong colored shirt or something. They hate me. And she sits across from me. She goes, well, we have a position that opened up in the international group. you're going to be working with Carter Beast Jr., who is a former SEC commissioner and the head of the international group, the chairman. He is a Republican. Are you okay with that? I'm like, why would I not be okay? Of course, yeah, whatever. I'm okay with it anyways. Because, well, we noticed that you were a speechwriter for Al Gore. I'm like, hey, I am bipartisan. I swing any way you want me to swing.
It was a job.
It's a job. She goes, and then you're also going to be working with, well, you have to call him Mr. Griswold. It's William Griswold IV. He's also the chairman of the board of Johns Hopkins University and chairman of the board of the New York Stock Exchange, and he's the fourth generation of Alex Brown and Sons. I said, great. Okay, so what happened? They said, well, the analyst, got a job with her father's company. He's opening a new private equity firm in D.C., so she has to go, and we have this opening, and we noticed that you're international. Aren't you international? I said, yes, I'm American, born in Asia. Well, you're international then. Okay, I'm international. I guess I'm international. And it's the same thing that happened in Andover. When I went to Andover, it was international. Suddenly international. I'm like, more American than anybody else, but I'm international. I'm like, okay, I'm international. She's like, what's the international group? Aren't you international? Yes, I'm international. I'm international.
Me too.
So then I interview with Carter, and he's got like ADHD, and he's like very vibey and very cool. He's on the board of China Telecom, China Internet. He's Renaissance Hotel. He's a big guy.
Wow.
He's going to, have a speech at Davos, speech at Asia Society. He's in World Economic Forum, and He's got to do this whole speech with International Monetary Fund because, the Thai baht collapsed, and we got to do all this stuff. So, can you write speeches? I said, yes, I can write speeches. Can you write press releases? Yes, I can write press. I don't know how to write. I've never written a press release. I was in college, Okay, you're going to have to learn these financials. I mean, you can learn it. You can get up to speed. I said, absolutely, whatever you need. I'm happy to. Okay, I want to see your, I want to see your essay that you wrote in Taipei American School in 8th grade. What was it, 10th grade? I said 10th grade. It says here that you won the VFW speechwriting contest, Why I Am Proud of America. Can I see that essay? I'm like, sure. I don't know where it is. I mean, it's like was this before email? You didn't ask.
Before computer.
It's like, I don't know where this is.
Typed it on my word processor.
Yeah, it was like typewritten and then the word processing. And yes, absolutely.
White out
great
splotches on there.
This is great. VFW, that's great. That's very great. Because, I'm a Republican. Are you okay with that? Because you wrote for Al Gore. I say, absolutely, no problem. I'm happy to support. Like, I just, want an opportunity. He's like, okay, this is great. Okay, goodbye. And he leaves. I'm just like, oh, my God. Working for a spaz. But, it's so important when you're in finance that you're in the East Coast. You need maybe 2 years, 4 years is good. You need a little bit of that East Coast flavor because they're different. They're more about establishment and legacy. They talk very openly about their father and their father. We don't do that as much in Asia. But they emphasize that, like, oh, my father does this, and my sister is this, and my mother is, they're very into that. It's different than California. It's not as big into legacy. So East Coast is all about legacy. Then they're like, okay, well, now you're going to meet Mr. Griswold. You're going to call him Mr. Griswold. He's Mr. Griswold. I said, yes, absolutely, Mr. Griswold. Okay, I'm 20 years old. Okay, I'm just like, okay, Mr. So I sit there, and he's got his glasses, and he looks at my resume. He just kind of goes, oh, you went to Johns Hopkins University. How did you like it? I said, well, it's very difficult. It's like boot camp for geniuses. Are you a genius? No, sir, I'm almost a genius, not really a genius. Good, because I am the chairman of the board of the Johns Hopkins University and just donated $10 million to the Peabody Conservatory for their organ. You also are involved in music. I said, yes. Good. Thank you. I said, okay, thank you very much. And that was my interview. I was so nervous. I was like, do I talk about anything? Do I talk about my GPA? No, he just says, no, oh, great. And out of all of those guys who went to Wharton and Harvard, and he focused on Hopkins because that was his connection. And he focused on music because he loved music. And turns out his wife, she graduated from Peabody in piano, so he loves music. So there are things like that kind of started to encourage me to go into music a little bit more. When I got married and I had Camilla, I started working for Del Monte Foods. Because after banking, I moved to California, and they didn't have an IB real strong IB arm out there. There was a lot of private equity VC, but not as much IB. So I went into Wells Fargo, and from there I then went into, on the client side, working for Del Monte. And that was very interesting because I was reporting to the treasurer, and I was doing all this work for Texas Pacific Group, TPG, since they had did this takeover of Del Monte. And I thought that what I learned there really merged all of my interests into one. I didn't have a really great marriage, so I didn't want to go home. And I think this is a very honest thing to say. A lot of times we don't want to go home if we really don't want to go home.
Right.
So I did everything possible to not go home. So I had 100-hour work weeks. Anytime they had projects, I said, yes, I want to
I'm
do.
not coming home for Thanksgiving.
I'm very busy. I got to go.
Right on.
So they did. Deal team. I'm on the deal team. I was on all these deal teams for M&A, for restructuring, for refinancing. I think my total cumulative transactions closed was about 2.3 billion because we had a reverse Morris Trust for Heinz spinoffs, and I did all this work. But then after the work, I was kind of tired, and I didn't want to go home. So I thought, maybe I should go to the Opera House. San Francisco Opera House is just a trolley ride up. And then I saw the Peabody Conservatory that my mentor, Burl-Sanofsky, had passed. And that kind of set me thinking, well, maybe I should do a little bit more music. So when Camilla, my oldest, was around 3 or 4, I decided to go into the San Francisco Opera House. And I found Sherry Grenewald, and I started training, and I started singing. And I started competing. I was winning all these prizes in opera. I won the San Francisco Art Song Competition. I was doing a lot of work. I even got selected by the Queen Elizabeth competition in Belgium and was one of the four Americans. No, 4 Americans out of 125 singers invited. And then sang for the Queen and sang for Joan Sutherland. I did all this work. It was really exciting. And Del Monte did a little write-up. They said, did you know that this senior manager of finance who wears glasses during the day in a suit is actually an opera singer? And had this little column, right, the Del Monte Times and whatnot. And I swear, Ronen, it was so funny because I think women have a disadvantage in the workplace, not because they're women, but because men don't know how to interact with them. They want to be appropriate, but they want to be cool too. They want to be friends, but they don't want to be inappropriate, so they don't really know what to talk about. Other than your job, what can you talk about? Can you talk about sports? Can you play poker? Can you talk about other things? Now they had something to talk about. So one executive at a time. And just to think, out of a deal team of 100 people, there were 2 women. So I'm one of 2. One at a time. There was hey, I didn't know you like music. Hey, did you go to that Rolling Stones concert and blah, blah. They were starting to talk about music because they could talk about music. And we were starting to connect through music. And I never thought that I could use music as a way to advance my visibility in a company. I just thought music was a side thing that I did to make mom stop crying. I thought, wait a minute, this could be something that could actually be integrated in the corporate world. So I started doing more music, and people started being more interested. And they'll say, hey, did you want to be on this deal team for this thing that we're doing? And I say, we need another finance. Yeah, absolutely, happy to do it. It's hey, you doing any concerts lately? So there was something to talk about other than your job. So I think a lot of times women would complain, well, I'm not really getting bumped up in my career. I'm not being promoted. A lot of it is because the social structure prevents that from happening. A lot of promotions and a lot of projects happen because you're just hanging out. You're hanging out, or you're having beers, or you're in a thing, in a concert, and watching baseball, and then you're talking, and then something happens. You have to have the opportunity to hang out. A lot of women also want to rush home to take care of the kids, or they're rushing home because they're worried about what's happening at home. So if you don't have a structure at home to take care of things at home, you're not going to want to hang out. So here I am hanging out. I'm hanging out a lot, and I'm getting promoted, I'm getting retained, I'm getting advancements. And I think that's another thing that music has really helped me with my career and what I wanted to do.
So it's like you have, effectively, you're putting yourself in the right place at the right time.
Yes.
Right? And it's, I don't want to relate it to luck because it's not luck, but you make your luck, right? By making yourself more accessible, right?
Yes.
In being in the right place.
Yes.
And creating this commonality, right, between really effectively, I mean, people come together on topics that they can relate to, right?
Yes.
And so I think you use music as that thing to advance yourself.
Right, but even when I was walking around the office and you introduced me as Maki, she's an opera singer right away. Oh, you sing opera? Where do you sing? When is your concert? Do you perform around here? And it's a nice commonality. I think there was a Japanese prime minister who said once that if you're a doctor, you help one person at a time. But if you're a musician, you can help 100,000 people at a time or millions of people because of your song. And even after you have passed, that lives on forever. So I thought that was a very interesting way to connect with people without making them feel inappropriate or uncomfortable because we're talking about music in a very passionate way. Like if you wear a T-shirt that says New Order or Duran Duran, people are like, I remember that album.
Yes.
And it starts a whole conversation.
AC/DC.
Dad. So while I was doing this, and I got picked up by Disney. So after that, I was doing some fundraising for the Gallo family, and then Disney called. And they said, listen, we have this executive communications position. You're going to be working for the chairman of parks. It's Tom Staggs, Jay Rizzullo. They report to Bob Iger. Would you be interested? We require you to relocate to LA, which we will fully comp and help your children relocate. And I thought, yes, because it's entertainment. It's a little bit closer to my interest in music.
Yes.
So I should go and do this and think and see what it's all about. And my mother said, no, you're not going to LA. It's filled with drug dealers, hustlers, porn stars. They're all fake. They're all into fortune and fame. They're all going broke, looking rich. I said, Mom.
That's everything I want in life.
I said, Mom, listen. She goes, just as long as you keep your class and standards, I will not fund anything unless you. I said, Mom, okay, you're right. I'm never going to win in the trends game, okay? So let's take a look at this from a business perspective. If I'm going to make it big in LA, if I'm going to have a voice in LA, and LA's got like 14 million people, what are some of the things that I can do differently to make my voice in Disney? Because Disney is a big company, it's a very important company. And you know what she said? She said, Maki, you're very good at analysis. You're very good at data. You got the Hopkins and Andover training. So analyze everything very carefully. Analyze your data, analyze the people, analyze the projects, and get it down to a message, and then do everything opposite of that.
Whoa.
I said, oh, right. She goes, right. So if all of the women are coming out with their on-season purses and shoes and this and that, and they're spending all this money on this and that and this and that, that stuff is going to go out of season. Do the opposite. Go for timeless. Go for elegant. It's a cultural wasteland, so go for culture. Go for sophistication, and you will never lose. You will always win. You will always be in the top 10 at least, because there's not enough people who are elegant, who have class, who have culture, who have violin and opera and languages. I mean, you sing in 13 languages. This is important. And I thought, that's very good advice. Because if you take a look at everything, for example, Bob Iger has done at Disney, he has looked at all of the landscapes, and he's done the opposite. He had Steve Jobs on the board, and he said, he came out, and I wrote the speech. He came out and said, iPad is going to be a game changer. Everyone was like, this is not a game changer. He's crazy. This is a stupid idea. It's an expensive piece of equipment. It's never going to go anywhere. He said, no, this is a game changer. This whole touch screen thing is going to be a game changer. Because that was 2007. They were like, no, he's insane. But he went opposite of the trend. He went opposite of what people wanted to do. It's the same thing with when I was advising Disneyland on how we were opening our parks, because I was on the opening team for Shanghai Disneyland. Mm-hmm. It was a very big conversation. They said, well, we don't understand, why these green caps are not doing well in Hong Kong. We're getting people are throwing them in the garbage. We're giving out these green caps because it's got like Donald Duck on it, like. And I said, well, in Hong Kong culture, let's talk about cultural literacy. You got to have cultural literacy hand in hand with corporate expansion. Green caps means that your husband is having an affair with another woman. So you don't want to pass out green caps at Hong Kong Disneyland.
No.
Big no-no.
A cultural faux pas.
Then they were like, well, we don't understand. And I was like, why don't you understand? Why are we having to spend millions of dollars reversing this error? We don't understand why the level 4, rooms 4 never get booked. I said, okay, because four in the Chinese culture is synonymous with the word death. So no Chinese family in their right mind would have their mother in the fourth floor or somebody in the room number 4 or 44 or 14, nothing 4. So they said, well, what do you recommend? I said, well, you can't delete the room 4, so we're just going to have to replace it with 5. Skip 4.
3A.
1、2、3A. So 1、2、1、2、3、5. 1, 2, 3, 5. So we skipped the 4. But that takes millions of dollars to reverse. All it takes is a cultural literacy conversation, and then they'll say, oh, this is not going to work. Because the trend and the corporate idea is this. But we got to go against it sometimes. Not that we want to go against regulation, but we got to go against what the policy says. Another one is Paris. All right, so Disney never, ever sells alcohol, right? Ever, up until Paris. And the Parisians, the executives, we had a conversation. They said, Maki, it's not going to fly. We're going to have no attendance, especially during Christmas, etc., because Parisians love to drink wine. They drink wine like water. It's very part of our culture. It's part of our cultural intelligence. And they wouldn't do it. Burbank wouldn't do it. They said, no, we're not going to do it. And then suddenly it started to drop. So finally, we had to implement that, and I think that's another example of how cultural literacy and intelligence is so important when making corporate decisions.
So before we move to the final segment of
Oh, I forgot to talk about Skrillex, but anyway, never mind.
yes,
What?
talk about Skrillex, please. Hello.
So I'm at Disney, and my daughter, who's in 5th grade now, is pretty upset that mommy is not cool because mommy is working at Disney and she's wearing the same clothes all the time and she's not really cool.
Right.
So she said, okay, this is Camilla.
Timeless, classic, elegance.
Classic St. John. She
cool.
goes, you know what, Mom, you're not cool. And what you need to do is you need to take your opera and violin and do something cool with it. There's this thing called America's Got Talent. This guy just sang your song, O Mio Babino Caro, and everybody clapped and cried. And he went on to the semifinals. And now he has a contract, with the label. And you should do the same because you sing better than him. And you're beautiful and inspiring. And I said, what's America's Got Talent? She goes, what's this TV show? I said, well, I'm not going on a TV show. I'm not doing it. She goes, no, you need to do it. And you need to do it with something interesting. I said, like what? She goes, like this thing. It's called Skrillex. So listen to this. And I said, this is terrible. This is like noise. What is it? She goes, it's called dubstep, Mom. Everybody's listening to this right now. I said, he's not saying anything except like, bang-a-rang, beep. It's just like, this is really
Like
it.
a bunch of chainsaws.
Like, what is what's going on here? I'm like, are you listening to this, Camilla? She goes, yes, I'm listening to it. And everybody else is. They really like it. And it doesn't have any lyrics, so you can put your lyrics on it. So I thought, okay, all right, just so I can be cool in front of my child. So I put Sakura, the word Sakura, this one.
Yeah.
I put that on Skrillex Kyoto, the song, and then I did a violin thing on it.
Whoa.
And then it went viral. And then I got on America's Got Talent. And then I got picked up by management. So then management then calls Skrillex. And they go, oh, you know what? This is the artist who played to your song. He's really cool. It's like #1 on Reverb Nation, for 5 weeks in the U.S. and global for electronic dance music. And we think that she should play with you at Burning Man. And they're like, oh yeah, she should definitely come and fly in. And I said, okay, here's the thing though. I'm a single mother, and I gotta be back by 6 p.m. or 6 a.m. so I can take my kids to school. They're like, what is this? What is this? Take your kids to school. It's Burning Man. I was like, yeah, but you're doing this during like summer school, and I got to take them to school.
I'm an Asian parent. Hello.
I said, okay, so we'll fly you in private jet to Black Rock City. You'll step off, and then you'll play. Then you can do a couple little things and go on an art barge and then go back. Like Pasquale Rotella has an art barge, so go on that one, and then you'll fly back, and then you'll be in time for the 6 a.m. drop off of your kids to summer school. I said, okay, that sounds great. So that's what I did. So I went in, played with Skrillex, and he was like, oh yeah, my buddy over there, he could use some violin. Go play with him. I was like, who's that? I said, Diplo. Go play with Diplo. I'm like, all right. So I played with Diplo also, and it was at Camp Question Mark, and everyone was all excited and having fun, and it was all this great stuff. And then afterwards, I was like, thank you so much. And then they'll go on the art car, and the art barge had this guy on there, and he was with Pasquale Rotella, and we were just kind of hanging out against this. The thing is hanging out, right? And then Disney went, the first week I started at Disney, they said, okay, the most important word you can say is absolutely. Just say absolutely, nod, smile, and say, absolutely, I'm going to do it, no problem, and then figure out how to do it later. I said, okay, absolutely. They're like, can you go to the Oscar? Absolutely. Happy to be, yes, happy, absolutely. Yeah, go talk, go hang out over there, okay? And then we're going to leave in about an hour. Okay, sure, absolutely, whatever you say. So I'm just hanging out and just talking and talking. And the guy standing next to me, we're talking. He's kind of stuttering a little bit, had a little bit of an accent. We were talking. He was like, yeah, this thing, I'm great at this thing, this car. It's on a battery. I said, you created a car that's on a battery? Really? Like electric or battery? Like, I don't understand. How does it move? He goes, well, it's called Tesla. Kind of fun. I don't know. I don't know if it'll go very far. I said, oh, it sounds kind of nice. I'll buy stock. I'll buy a stock in Tesla. He's like, you would? I said, yeah, I'll buy one stock. I'll buy one stock. He said, oh, okay, well, here's my number. My name is Elon Musk, and here's my email, and let's keep in touch. Let me know how it goes with your music. I said, okay, I got to go. Bye. Thank you so much. And I go on the plane and come. And we've been in touch ever
Sorry,
since.
my private jet is waiting.
Okay, yeah, I did. I was like, oh, I gotta go because I have to go and take my kids to school. I gotta go. I gotta get out of here. I'm like, I'm allergic to dust. It's too much dust. He goes, yeah, man, yeah, God, yeah, you go. We'll connect. I have this other idea thing, like spaceships and stuff. You want to tour over there? I'm like, yeah, sure, happy. Because text me, email me, and we'll set up a tour. I said, okay. So that's how I met Elon.
Damn. You know everybody. I mean, that's like an epic.
I'm on this flight. Then I'm like, I shower and change to my mommy glasses. I'm like, okay, everybody, okay, breakfast. I need to go to school.
I mean,
It was
Skrillex,
Diplo,
Elon Musk.
And then he was good on his word. He did set up a whole tour of SpaceX, and I got an inside tour of SpaceX, and I got to see like the astronauts and sit in his
God,
Puff the Magic Dragon.
So lucky.
And then, but then my daughters don't believe me because I have no photos, right? I don't have photos of any of this. So they're like, we don't think you really know him. You're just making it up. Like, well,
who needs the photo when you can tell the
I was
story like
barred
this, Maki?
I was barred from shooting photos in SpaceX, but yes, I was there.
All right. Let's do a quick rapid fire before we wrap this up. What do you
Yes.
say?
That sounds good, Ronen.
Okay, Maki. I have a very interesting question for you.
Okay.
Sushi or xiaolongbao?
Okay, here's the thing.
Yes.
Xiaolongbao is only good if the dough is thin. If it's
Yeah.
thick, it doesn't taste good.
Well, if we're talking about real,
It's got to be really good
authentic
It's got to be
xiaolong-
really good.
the good stuff.
But see, sushi has a lot of nutrients. It's got calcium. It's really good for you. So absolutely, my kids would also say, I would say sushi.
Sushi. What is your favorite color to wear on stage?
So my management, Pinnacle, who is co-owned by one of my best friends, John Nicholas, would tell you that they always want me to wear something bright, right? Like reds, etc. But I can also attest that blues work very well on stage. Red is a little bit in your face. It's very Christmassy. Blues is a little more pleasing to the eye, and I can also coordinate it with silvers or golds. So I really love wearing blues on stage, although that's not my favorite color.
And your favorite color is?
My favorite color is plum.
Plum.
Plum purple.
Plum. Any book that you would recommend to a listener out there?
So I just had a really great tea with one of my favorite people, Kevin Kwan and his cousin Nancy Kwan, Hollywood icons, and they're both inductees. And Ren Hanami, we had tea at the Peninsula. And I have to tell you that Kevin Kwan is just so amazing, so talented. His whole series of Crazy Rich Asians is really fun. Now he's coming out Sex and Vanity, then we have the paperback, we have the hard copy. That would be really fun. And the movie's coming out by Sony Pictures. So I highly recommend that to anybody.
That's the book?
Yeah, I would say, here's a problem with me is, and you probably already caught on to it, is that I would answer one question with like 10 things. So I just said like 10 things, which is Crazy Rich Asians, the trilogy, and the Sex and Vanity.
Maki, what's your favorite place to go on holiday? I mean, I know this is your first time in Thailand.
It is my first
You've
time
been
in
missing
Thailand.
out. But where else?
Can't believe it's my first time here.
Where would you go on holiday?
It's my favorite place to go on holiday, as in where I want to go or where I usually go.
Where do you usually go? What's the Maki spot?
Well, this is a very, very strange answer, and I hope that you don't take offense because it's not some like romantic place someplace. But I really love the recording studio. It sounds so dumb.
Maki's on holiday!
I love the recording studio, and the Asian Hall of Fame is very fortunate that we are renting our office space, our headquarters at the private studio Robbie Krieger. He's a founding member of The Doors. He has a private studio in Glendale, and he's so generous to let us rent his space. And I just love going there. I love just watching Marco, the GM, and Riley, Natul with gear, and Ed Roth, the music director, like yell about the sound. And I love it when people come in and out, and it's just so fun to be in the recording studio. Asian Hall of Fame also has this really cool program where non-Asian artists, Grammy and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame artists, are honored because they're expanding our brand to a new audience. And being a Grammy governor, it's important that we continue this collaboration. So we get a lot of Grammy artists like Danny Serafin of Chicago, Chris Novoselic of Nirvana, Hiro Yamamoto of Soundgarden, and now you got Kim Thale. He's also nominated for induction. Matt Cameron of Pearl Jam. He's going to be a Goodwill ambassador this year. So it's really great just to have like a nice cohort, a nice family in the recording studio. I can just spend days there, like a vampire, like a bat, like in the cave.
We have some work to do here in this little studio of ours. If you could invite 3 people, any 3 people, alive or otherwise, to dinner, who would they be?
You know what? I would love to invite my dad. He passed away 6 years ago. And I didn't know he was alive because 25 years ago, my mother told me before I got married that my dad had died in cardiac bypass surgery. She was so mad at him for all of the things that he did to the family that she didn't want him to be alive. So I didn't know he was alive until about 5 days ago when I started helping my mother with some paperwork. And I'm talking to my cousin, who's 87, who I've never met and didn't know was alive, and discovered my father actually passed the same year my sister passed. So he passed in 2017. And I've just never had we've never talked about my wedding photos or my career path. He doesn't know about my kids. He's never met them. Like, it would be really nice to have him come over for dinner. And it would be really nice for my mother to be at dinner too. Because, the whole relationship was him just sipping tea and her yelling at him. So I think that would be very interesting to enact, just to see what that's all about. And I think that the third one, it's an interesting question because I thought, would it be like an artist or would it be a politician or a businessman? You know what? I have to say that I have a real affinity for Steve Jobs. I would just love... And, I want him to bring his daughter, too, because I would just love to hear, like, his thought behind his company, how he built it, all of the things that he did, and then his daughter and what that meant. Like, what does that mean to have a daughter who you really didn't connect with until later in life when you're dying of pancreatic cancer? Does it have to go to that extent? So I actually invited 4 because his daughter is with Steve Jobs.
That's okay. plus 1.
It's +1, right? So yeah, that's my answer.
That's amazing. Maki, this has been such an epic discussion. You're such a great storyteller.
Oh, so happy.
You have so much to say, and I think we could go on for another 3 hours, but I'm just so appreciative of you being on Epicenter today and sharing so much of your life with the audience, and there's so much to learn from that.
Well, thank you so much, Ronen and Epicenter Apps Flyer. This has been an amazing experience. My first time in Thailand and Bangkok in your amazing headquarters here, and it's just been a delightful experience. And everything that I just said is going to be in my book, Made in Taipei. So I hope that the next year that we get together, we will be talking about the book. So look forward to it.
Awesome.
Thank
you, Maki.
Thank you, Ronen.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
See you all.